Good afternoon, everyone. Fab, we'll kick things off. So thanks everybody for joining us this afternoon for the VAT clinic. I'm sure you're all loving the idea of spending your Thursday afternoon in the summer talking about NHS VAT, but interesting topic for us. We're going to kick off by doing a couple of introductions and we'll run through what we're planning to cover over the next half hour, 40 minutes. So first of all, I'm Jack Mazzina. I'm the Commercial Director for the Workforce Business here at Liaison Group, and I will just let Kenny introduce himself as well.
Thanks, Jack. Yeah, I'm Kenny Lee, Head of Tax at Liaison, and been involved with the VAT and locum doctors.
Thanks, Kenny. And yeah, so I should have said, as commercial director, I've been involved with the workforce business at Liaison since the inception of direct engagement back in 2011. I remember being locked in a room and told about this new idea that was going to change the way the NHS procures locum doctors for the foreseeable, and it's been quite the ride ever since. The agenda today, we just want to set the scene, talk a bit about the Isle of Wight context. We want to hear from you, what is concerning you as agency suppliers to the NHS right now. I'm going to hand over to Kenny for his expertise on the VAT landscape. We can share some perspective from our NHS customers that we're dealing with. And ultimately, yeah, we want to understand what your questions are and give you our view on why we think direct engagement and direct employment still matters. And we can always speculate on what the future will look like. So first of all, to set the scene, obviously anyone in attendance today, I'm sure you're all aware of the Isle of Wight Tribunal decision that happened last September, and that has changed the conversation around the VAT treatment of locum doctors being supplied into the NHS. It's created a lot of questions around direct engagement, VAT treatment, and the refund claims process, which is, from what I understand, been quite a burden on agency suppliers to the NHS. And it has prompted NHS organisations to, reassess the risks, look at what they're doing, look at their processes, and just understand, do I need to change? What should I continue doing? So, and there's four key questions there, which I won't go into detail because Kenny's going to cover some of these off. But, fundamentally, what has changed? Well, what has changed is there's been a ruling that standard placement locum supplied to the NHS retrospectively are now exempt from VAT. So there's a retrospective opportunity to claim back the VAT that was charged on those locums. Anyone who was directly engaged didn't apply to. What still remains unclear is the future treatment of standard placement locums. So will HMRC uphold the decision and the VAT exemption rule is going to apply to everything moving forward? They haven't confirmed that. Are they going to change the legislation? They might, we don't know. But fundamentally, we've got a lot of customers have been asking us across our business, from our financial side of the business that have been supporting the NHS for nearly 40 years now in NHS VAT advice. They've been asking us a lot about the claims process. And so Kenny and his colleagues have been doing an awful lot of work there, advising what that process looks like, helping them prepare their data to make claims, and then obviously helping them understand the process around contacting their agency suppliers to make those retrospective claims on VAT. They've also been asking us, do I still need to do DE? I don't, it's working really well at the minute. Do I need to change? What's Liaison's view on this? So we've been getting all kinds of questions, and I guess the other questions are, what are agencies focusing on at the minute? There is a number of concerns that we're hearing from our agency engagement teams, that we'd love to hear from you on. Kenny, do you mind just giving us a bit of perspective from a VAT advisory point of view on the current lay of the land, please?
Absolutely, Jack. Thanks very much. And a really interesting set of topics that you've covered there, with the different areas that are causing concerns. So with the VAT, HMRC have not really put much out there. When the decision came out originally, they put a business brief out at the end of 2025. And that's basically given the AGs the option to either charge VAT, as they do at the moment, or treat it as exempt from VAT. It does also allow retrospective adjustments to be made as well. And at the moment, we don't know what avenue HMRC will go down. What we do know is that they didn't appeal against the decision. So the current status is that they have accepted that there would be no VAT on the income to the agencies that would be exempt. So the two sort of things that are quite important at the moment is, firstly, if this income becomes exempt into the agency, it means that we have to restrict our VAT recovery. So at the moment where we're getting 100% VAT recovery, that becomes a restriction on it, and that's called partial exemption. We're getting partial recovery on the expenditure side. That's not going to be a cost, because that would be part of your the agency's on cost going on to the NHS. However, that is an additional calculation that needs to be carried out. Going forward, we can continue to charge VAT, but we know that that may be forcibly changed by HMRC at some point in time in the future. Now, from previous experience, it can be over a year, so it could be well into 2027 before any updates come out on this from HMRC. If we do continue to charge VAT and it remains taxable at the standard rate, then we're home and dry. There's nothing we need to do. However, if it's amended to being exempt, we then have to do retrospective. Likely compulsion date would be back to the date of the tribunal hearing. However, they can go back 4 rolling years. So at the moment we're in July 26, so they could go back to July 22. Now, on the basis that no VAT's charged to the NHS, it's obviously substantial savings to the NHS. Even taking into account restrictions on agency VAT recovery, there's still going to be no VAT at all on the VAT on the payments made by the NHS. The restriction on VAT recovery would potentially be passed on along with any other cost, because that's your bottom line, or your new bottom line cost of the provision of the service. The risk is that we don't do anything just now. We can put protective claims into HMRC going back 4 years, and that stops the clock ticking. We're aware that HMRC have been reviewing these claims. They've not paid any of them out yet, so we're waiting on a final decision from HMRC, particularly if it's large value claims, but all claims. Again, it's just submitting these to HMRC and sort of it stops the clock ticking, because we can only go 4 years back 4 years from that point in time. With that, if there are any questions, please put them in the chat, but I'll hand you back to Jack.
Thanks very much, Kenny. So just moving on, so many of you will be aware that Liaison Workforce, we work with around 60 NHS providers providing our temporary platform, and nearly all of them are operating the direct engagement service on there. So it's fair to say what are we hearing from our customers? Well, as I said, aside from the financial side of the business questions around the claims process, they've been asking us around what does the future look like? Do they still need to continue doing direct engagement? Is it going to affect their supply? And fundamentally, we're not hearing an awful lot from customers. A lot of them are saying, this is working really well for us at the minute. Do I need to change? I prefer if I didn't have to. So fundamentally, from our perspective, we've been reassuring customers that whatever happens with the future legislation, we're still going to continue to provide them temporary, because for our clients, they get much wider benefits from using that platform around grip, control and visibility, and being able to access a wide pool of framework agency suppliers that they, whether they're directly engaging workers or not, they still want to continue using it. One thing that we'd really encourage them to do is don't rush to make a rash decision on this based on a perception that I don't need direct engagement anymore. I think I can get everybody exempt, because there's a lot of stakeholders in the supply process. So we said we're advising that you need to consult with all stakeholders involved and understand, is that going to be an option for you or not? just a reminder, as I'm sure many of you know, if you're working closely supplying your candidates through our temporary platform, but there's a number of benefits. We've designed our solution carefully to make sure that it not only benefits our NHS customers, but it also is beneficial to their agency supply chain. And so for just a recap on some of those benefits that we offer is that, and what we hear is that for your candidates who go through our temporary portal, they get a really positive candidate experience. And a lot of that is because of the user-friendly technology and mobile app that we provide, but also the support provision that your candidates can access our help desk. They've got help portals, and also when they're directly engaged, they can access the NHS pension. I'm not sure how much visibility you have of this of your candidates, but we typically see in around 20,000 locum doctors being supplied through our platform each year. It averages out as around 1 in 4 of them are eligible and choose to enrol into the NHS pension scheme, even though that reduces their take-home pay. And that's because they see it as a benefit. It's a way of reducing their tax liability. It's a way of planning for their retirement. And if locums stop doing direct engagement, they'll no longer have access to that. So from our perspective, we're not hearing that candidates want to stop having the ability to do that. Additionally, in terms of their agencies, we have invested heavily in support provision that benefits agencies. So having Pauline Yerby, who heads up our agency engagement team, who's obviously previously worked in the agency world for a number of years, understanding that industry. We've got our help desk for agencies. So if you have any queries around accessing the system, around your candidates, we've got a help desk, and on average, you can get through to an advisor and they pick up the phone in 7 seconds, which is, I know, unrivaled in this space. And we also have our dedicated client service team. So every single temporary customer has a dedicated client service consultant who no doubt you may have been in contact with at some point through one of our mutual customers. And we try to make improved cash flow for agencies using our temporary platform. So many of you will benefit from our invoice disbursement service, whereby every month we will collect any monies owed to agency suppliers, whether that be just the commission element where work has been directly engaged, or the total cost for standard placement bookings. We collect that money from our clients on a monthly basis and we disperse that directly to you, and all the backing data and invoices are there on the system, so you have that to access. But certainly we can get agency NHS money to you quicker. Fundamentally, if your candidates have been supplied through direct engagement, you're not having to pay them anymore. So for us, we know there's a benefit of not having to run as much payroll, and also that does impact cash flow as well, in that you're not having to pay a worker up front and then invoice the NHS to try and get that money back in retrospect. As Kenny mentioned around partial exemption, if you all of a sudden start making more exempt supplies to the NHS, that restricts the amount of VAT you can reclaim back, which could impact your cost base. Finally, most of you will be aware that temporary is one of the most widely used direct engagement solutions out there. It's currently used by over 60 NHS organisations, but interestingly, we've had a lot more interest from organisations that don't use it, understanding what we're doing, because they're not quite getting what they need from their incumbent supplier. One thing that we are doing behind the scenes, so regardless of what happens, we're updating our technology. We continually do that. So you'll always, for working with Liaison, there'll always only ever be one portal, whether you supply a direct engagement candidate or a standard placement candidate. We're currently updating the standard placement area of the system, so that can account for if you supply an exempt candidate and the calculations are made and the disbursement process and everything is recorded in the right way to do that. But fundamentally, your experience will, whether you supply direct engagement or standard placement, it's not going to change. And the final thing is, just to remind agency suppliers that, Liaison, we're a trusted advisor and delivery partner to the NHS. We've been working with the NHS for the best part of 40 years from both a VAT advice perspective and from the moment we've introduced direct engagement to the NHS. We're a trusted provider and we retain support of our NHS clients and hopefully support of agency suppliers through this period of uncertainty. But that's our updates done. I think for us now, this clinic is open. I've noticed already we've got a few questions in the chat which we'll get to, but please do share any concerns that you might have. Some of them we might need to take away, but any process challenges or scenarios you might be unsure to handle, and there will be an opportunity to contact us directly as well at the back of this, sorry, at the end of the session. So let me just look through. I think we've got a few questions in the chat there. So the first one is, and I guess Kenny, this might be one for you, is can you confirm what would happen if no retrospective claim is made due to the fact that the actual VAT saving is not material?
I suppose that's a matter for the NHS. There will always be VAT savings at some point along the line, and it's where we draw the line at being not material. That's something that you would probably want to talk to the NHS about. But if you're looking at insignificant amounts, then it's possibly not worth the hassle or the additional time and effort. But it's something that you would probably want to speak to your customers about, just to make sure that there was a good relationship maintained and that there was a reason given for it.
And I think to just add further perspective on that, I think from looking at the Liaison direct engagement service client base, I'd say the vast majority of our customers have all achieved really high levels of direct engagement. You know, some of them have been 100% for a number of years. So in their respects, you know, it has been a negligible amount that they could claim. I think they might have had one standard placement booking in 6 years, which was, you know, a few thousand pounds, and they've made a decision it's not worth the effort of getting the data, working with suppliers to go after that. They could invest that time in something else. But we've also had other customers that haven't had the same levels, and they have invested the effort. So as Kenny said, I think it all depends on the values, and as we all know, the NHS is financially challenged at the minute, so we might see that a lot of them are motivated to get back the savings. I can't see any other questions at the minute, so I'm just going to hang on another minute just to see if there are any others. What we can do at the end of this, if anyone's got a question that they don't want to ask in this forum, but we might want to follow up afterwards for some clarity, more than happy with Pauline to facilitate individual conversations with agency providers, and also we'll share our contact details at the end to ask or ask anything that you didn't think to ask during the session today. Okay. Oh, thank you. So we do have a question. So are you seeing trust reviewing models or just wait and see? I think that, well, the short answer to that is on the whole, no. Where they work with Liaison, we're not seeing trust review their model. I think we've had one customer who is investigating whether they need to keep working with us or not. What we have seen nationally is there are a number of organisations that use different direct engagement models that have decided to review or stop using them. And I think that's more been where organisations use a direct engagement model, which, you know, fundamentally it creates a lot of work for them to change the tax treatment of the locum, you know, multiple portals, you know, they're not seeing the benefits and of the technology and the processes that we provide to our customers. So I think we haven't been impacted, but I'd say some of the lesser quality direct engagement solutions which create work for trusts using them, and we have seen that. I think there's been I know at least of one organisation in Yorkshire and one in London that have just stopped using their model at the minute, and you know, and have gone back to manual processes, which seems bizarre. And that's, I think that's for us the thing that we're looking to discourage, is that, you know, regardless of what happens with this landscape, all the benefits that are coming with solutions like Temporary, which take work away, you know, give you great reporting, give you great support, smooth processes, visibility, compliance, the ability to control rates, and you don't want to lose that just because the VAT rules are changing. So I've got a question from Kevin. Can you circulate this recording, please? And yeah, I mean, for anyone who's joined, I don't see why we wouldn't circulate that. So I'm more than happy to. So yeah, we'll find a way to send that out to you afterwards. I can see a further comment actually to one of the other questions. Do you need to, Kenny, in just relation to the first question around the retrospective claim is made due to the fact that the actual VAT saving is not material, and the comment for follow was, do you need to make a S80 claim if that is the case?
So the VAT claim would be made to HMRC.
Okay.
But it would be the agency that would make the claim, and then once they've done their adjustments, any VAT would be passed on to the NHS by reversal of the VAT on the invoices that were originally raised.
Thank you. And I think along with the recording, I think we'd be more than happy. We have prepared a one-pager for our customers, which just kind of spells out what, just from the guidance we're giving. More than happy to share that with you. Just that the caveat is that this advice only applies to Liaison customers who benefit from the solution that we provide. It's not universally applicable because not all other direct engagement solutions operate like ours does, as I'm sure you're aware. Well, appreciate everybody for joining us this afternoon, and appreciate you taking the time to listen to what we have to say. And by all means, if there's anything not covered today that you're unsure of, please do feel free to connect with us on LinkedIn and reach out. But enjoy the rest of your afternoon, hopefully in the sunshine, and we get to see it.